He was impossible to stop. Strength, power, goals from anywhere. A striker who seemed above everyone else. But what destroyed his career wasn't on the pitch. And perhaps that's the hardest part to understand. Born on February 17, 1982, in the Vila Cruzeiro favela in Rio de Janeiro, Adriano Leite Ribeiro was destined for greatness. He grew up in a place where survival itself was a daily battle. At 19, he made his debut for Flamengo's first team. At 19, he was already being called up for the Brazilian national team. At 22, he was signed by Inter Milan for a fee of over 20 million euros. And then, he became the Emperor. The nickname L'Imperatore wasn't just marketing. It was earned. With a left foot that could break goalkeepers' hands. With a physique that made Serie A defenders bounce off him like they were made of paper. With a presence on the pitch that screamed dominance. He was the complete striker. The heir to Ronaldo. The future of Brazilian football. And for a brief, brilliant moment, there was no doubt about it. Adriano reached the top of world football. At Inter Milan, he wasn't just another player. He dominated. Defenders couldn't stop him. Goalkeepers couldn't react. The impact was immediate. The 2004-2005 season was his coronation. He scored 28 goals in all competitions, leading Inter to the Coppa Italia and the Italian Super Cup. He was named the best player in Serie A. In 2004, he won the Copa América with Brazil, finishing as the tournament's top scorer with 7 goals in 6 matches. In the final against Argentina, he scored the equalizer in stoppage time. In 2005, he won the Confederations Cup, scoring the winning goal in the final against Argentina again. He was the complete package. Power, technique, free kicks that bent physics, a left foot that could score from anywhere inside 35 yards. He seemed destined to become one of the greatest. And for a time, there was no doubt about it. But then, something changed. It wasn't an injury. It wasn't a bad run of form. It was something off the pitch. The loss of his father. On August 4, 2004, Adriano's father, Adriano Leite Ribeiro, suffered a fatal heart attack at the age of 44. He was found by Adriano's mother, Rosilda, who had gone to his apartment after he failed to answer his phone. Adriano was at a hotel in Milan, preparing for a match. When the phone call came, his Inter teammates heard everything. When the news of his father's death came, Adriano started screaming in a way you can't imagine. "I still tremble just remembering it," Javier Zanetti, the Inter captain, would later reveal. From that day on, Massimo Moratti and I treated Adriano like a younger brother. But after that phone call, he was never the same again. At that moment, football stopped being a priority. The player who had seemed indestructible began to disappear. I was at the peak of my career and suddenly, I received the news that the most important man in my life had left, Adriano would later write in his autobiography. What followed was a descent that no one could stop. Adriano fell into a deep depression. He described it as an emptiness that never completely passed. I didn't have the energy to wake up early and go train with desire. My only concern was drinking and going out partying. That routine didn't make me happy, contrary to what many people imagine. Drinking was the only way I found not to sit around thinking crap at home. The statistics of his decline are staggering. Between 2004 and 2009, Adriano missed countless training sessions. He disappeared for days at a time. He returned to Brazil without permission. He drank to oblivion. My depression reached a level that I don't even like to remember. Nothing worked anymore. Christmas in Milan became a recurring nightmare. One year, he had dinner at Clarence Seedorf's house. Instead of enjoying the warmth of his teammates' family, he felt so homesick that he returned to his apartment and drank an entire bottle of vodka alone, crying through the night. The Italian press didn't understand. They called him lazy, undisciplined, a party animal. But the truth was something else entirely. The world of football couldn't understand. What is happening to him? And this is the hardest part of the story. Because it wasn't the talent that disappeared. It was still there. But the motivation wasn't. The meaning wasn't. While clubs demanded performance, he was dealing with something much bigger. And slowly, the Emperor stopped existing on the pitch. In 2009, Adriano did something that shocked the football world. He disappeared. He fled Inter Milan and returned to Brazil. But not to a hotel, not to a training ground. He went back to the favela where he was born, to Vila Cruzeiro. When I fled Inter and left Italy, I came to hide here. I went all over the complex for 3 days. Nobody found me. There's no way to. Rule number 1 of the favela: keep your mouth shut. Do you think someone would snitch on me? No fucking rats here, bro. The Italian press went crazy. The Rio police even launched an operation to rescue him. They said he had been kidnapped. You're kidding me, right? Imagine that someone is going to do me any harm here, me, a favela child. They didn't understand why I went to the favela. It wasn't because of drinking or women, much less because of drugs. It was for freedom. It was because I wanted peace. I wanted to live. I wanted to be human again. Just a little bit. The favela gave him what Milan never could. Anonymity. Silence. The ability to just be. Massimo Moratti, the interpresident who treated Adriano like a son, tried everything. He offered him help. He offered him time. He offered him treatment. Zanetti tried too. The captain who had seen Adriano at his best tried to pull him out of the darkness. I couldn't get Adriano out of depression. That was my greatest defeat. I felt powerless. Jose Mourinho tried when he arrived at Inter. He bargained with Adriano. He tried to motivate him. He tried to give him structure. I bargained with Roberto Mancini. I tried hard with Jose Mourinho. I cried on Moratti's shoulder. But I couldn't do what they asked. A rehabilitation clinic in Switzerland was suggested. Adriano looked at the door, frightened. I thought some nurses would come in with straitjackets at any moment. What the hell was that, man? I would never accept that. Instead, he found help in Sao Paulo. A psychiatrist at the club's training center created a plan that worked. The treatment those guys did with me was really good. It started showing results fast. I felt more animated. The desire to run on the field, to do that boring preparation part, came back. He thought he was recovered. He wasn't. I gave up drinking for a while. I talked to the psychiatrist. I followed his treatment and did my part on the field. I thought I had recovered. You can't let your guard down. I did. And then came reality. The player who seemed unstoppable never returned to the same level. Not because he couldn't, but because something inside him had already changed. And perhaps the most impactful thing is this. He wasn't defeated by football. He was defeated by something that football cannot control. Adriano's own words about himself are the most devastating. I like that word, waste. Not only because of how it sounds, but because I'm obsessed with wasting my life. I'm fine like this, in frantic waste. I enjoy this stigma. The biggest waste in football, me. I drink every 2 days, and the other days too. I don't like giving explanations to others. But here's one. I drink because it's not easy to be a promise that remains in debt. And it gets even worse at my age. He was 42 when he wrote these words. The emperor, once worth millions, now defines himself by what he wasted. Not what he achieved. But here's what the statistics don't capture. Adriano didn't just lose his father. He lost his foundation. He was my biggest supporter, my base. He grew up watching his father work. He grew up in a place where death was a daily reality. He witnessed a murder as a child. He saw his father retire disabled after being hit by a stray bullet. Football was never his escape. His family was. When people use football as an escape valve, I used my family to rest from football, he once said. When that family was broken, the structure crumbled, and the world kept demanding more. People don't see football players as normal people. In my time, when it happened to me, it was heavier. We need to learn to understand people. Everyone goes through difficulties. It took years for the conversation about mental health in football to begin. Adriano was ahead of his time in the worst possible way. He was the cautionary tale before anyone knew what cautionary tales look like. Despite everything, Adriano's numbers tell the story of a player who, even broken, achieved greatness. For the Brazilian national team, 48 appearances, 27 goals. For Inter Milan, 177 appearances, 74 goals. For Serie A titles, 1 Coppa Italia, 2 Copa America trophies, 1 Confederations Cup. But the numbers that matter more came after. In 2024, he released his autobiography, Adriano, My Biggest Fear. In 2022, he participated in a documentary series about his life. He spoke openly about his depression, about his alcoholism, about the days he couldn't get out of bed. He did what few athletes of his generation dared to do. He admitted weakness. I'm not going to lie that I miss the Netherlands very much. No, that's from another script. Adriano's words are simpler. Everyone makes mistakes, and we have to give people the chance to improve. The documentary and the book were not just about football. They were about survival. Football is full of success stories, titles, goals, achievements. But some stories are different, because they show what exists behind. Adriano was not just a talent that fell. He was a human being who felt. who lost, who changed, and perhaps that's why his story remains so powerful. Because in the end, no matter how strong you seem to be, there are things that no player can overcome. Javier Zanetti, the man who tried everything to save his teammate, summed it up best. Not being able to pull Adriano out of the tunnel of depression was my greatest defeat. If the captain of Inter Milan felt powerless against depression, what chance did Adriano have? The emperor didn't lose his throne to a defender. He didn't lose it to an injury. He didn't lose it to age. He lost it to grief, to loss, to the unrelenting weight of being human in a world that demanded he be superhuman. And perhaps that's the lesson. Sometimes the strongest people aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who admit they fell. And Adriano, in his brokenness, has done exactly that. Adriano Imperator was one of the most talented strikers of his generation. A player who had everything: power, technique, the world at his feet. But his story isn't about what he achieved. It's about what he lost. And what he lost wasn't on the pitch. It was in his heart. If you enjoy deep football analysis that goes beyond the highlights, that looks at the human beings behind the players, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next deep dive. And now, the question for the comments. Do you think modern football does enough to support players' mental health? Or are we still expecting athletes to be superhuman while ignoring their humanity? I'll read you in the comments. Because football isn't just about goals and trophies. It's about people. And sometimes the people who seem strongest are fighting battles we cannot see. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.